I've replayed that night like a dashcam loop. The clatter of forks, the smell of rosemary chicken, the too bright, too clean light above her parents' table. I remember how I'd worried over the shirt I chose, something plain enough not to draw commentary from her mother, and how I'd rehearsed, quietly, the version of myself I always tried to bring to her family. Agreeable, helpful, a man who keeps the peace. We were there to celebrate her father's retirement. A long life in logistics, 2 bad knees, and a gentle stubbornness that made him both lovable and impossible. Her mother had placed place cards, because in that house tradition is a piece of furniture, polished, heavy, never moved. I sat beside my wife, across from her older sister, Lena, whose laugh carries like a bell even when she's tired. At the far end, her younger brother hunched over his phone, absorbing the table into the private universe of his screen. The first round of stories went well enough. Work anecdotes, small-town gossip. Then her mother said, "We never did hear how that late night turned out, the one with the flat tire." The way she said late night sounded like a church bell, too. My wife's hand went still on her wine glass. "It was nothing," she said, smiling at her father. "Just an unlucky screw in the tread. AAA came." A nod toward me. "Got there after it was all handled." Everyone looked at me like I was the nod, like I should confirm the comfortable story and pass the potatoes. I felt that old instinct rise, the soft lie we tell to keep the room warm. And maybe on any other night I would have played my part. But I hadn't slept well for weeks. I'd watched my wife build a scaffolding of half-truths around one particular Tuesday, and the weight of it was bending us both into stranger shapes. "That's not quite how it went," I said, and my voice did a little betray-me tremor I couldn't stop. AAA couldn't find the location. I got a text with a pin drop an hour later than she said. And when I arrived, the tire wasn't flat. The table did that thing families do, a collective inhale that makes silence ring. My wife turned to me with a look that said, "Not here. Not now. Not like this." And maybe she was right. Maybe the table wasn't the place to weigh the truth in front of people who would try to pinch off its edges and file it into something palatable. But I couldn't unsee that Tuesday anymore. The text that suddenly turned to one-word replies, the phone died, as explanation, the scent of a cologne I didn't own in the back seat of her car. Her father cleared his throat. "So what did happen?" "I told you," my wife said brightly. "He got confused. He's been," she faltered, searching for a word that wasn't cruel, then found one that was tidy. "Stressed." "Stressed?" I repeated, and the word tasted like aspirin. "Don't do this," she whispered to me, still smiling for the table. I could have let it drop. I could have let the evening settle back into the safer, kind of forgetting that families are built on. Instead, I said, "I checked the camera." Her sister's head tipped, curious. "What camera?" "The one over our garage," I said. "We installed it after the package thefts. It picked up the driveway that Tuesday." I felt my own pulse in my gums. "Your car came home at 2:17 a.m. A rideshare dropped you off. You told me you were with Kara, but Kara texted me later, worried you weren't answering." My wife's smile finally broke. "You're a liar," she said evenly, with that careful diction she uses when she wants to sound calm enough to win. And then she slapped me. It wasn't hard, not the kind of slap that sends a head spinning, but it carried something heavier, a warning, a plea, a humiliation. The sound was small and enormous at once. Forks froze. Her brother's phone lowered. Her father blinked. I felt heat rush to my face in a way I haven't felt since middle school, when a coach dressed me down in front of the team. I didn't raise my hand. I didn't stand. I just stayed. Because that's what I do. I stay until I can't. "Enough," her mother said, but it came out like a question. "I'm not lying," I said softly, to the table, to the dent in my cheek where her ring had pressed. "I don't want to fight. I want to stop living on 2 separate maps." Lena looked between us, the bell of her laugh gone quiet. "Do you still have the footage?" "Yes," I said, surprising myself. I hadn't planned to say that. I'd planned to talk about counseling, about miscommunication, about the way a marriage can get lost in the underbrush. But the word yes left my mouth like it had been waiting there all along. "Let me see," Lena said. She didn't sound accusatory, just tired. Maybe she'd already suspected more than she wanted to. She stood, lifted her phone, and glanced toward her parents' living room. "Dad, can I connect to the TV?" Her mother began to protest. "We are not turning this dinner into." but her father raised a palm. "Let's just be sure," he said to no one and everyone. The way men who've managed warehouses their entire lives speak when they smell a mess they can't mop with denial. My wife's eyes flashed. "Lena, no." Lena met her stare, sister to sister. Something passed between them I couldn't read. Then she looked at me. "Send it to me." I pulled out my phone with fingers that felt too big for their job. Airdropped the file. Watched the little progress ring creep around like a slow second hand. My wife's breath came fast and sharp beside me, the way a runner sounds when there's no more road to outrun whatever's chasing her. We moved into the living room in a slow spill of bodies and caution. The TV blinked awake. Her father stood with the remote like it was a tool he trusted. Lena cast her screen. The first frame was our driveway, an ordinary rectangle of concrete made suddenly holy in the way evidence is blank until it isn't. "Turn it up," her brother murmured. "There's no sound," I said. "It's just watch." The progress bar slid. The picture held steady, our maple casting a dark lace on the hood of her car. And then a rideshare pulled to the curb. The back door opened. A figure stepped out, head down, jacket collar up. My wife. She waved at the driver. Another figure in the front seat leaned, too close, a hand brushing the edge of the door. The door closed. The car idled, then pulled away. "Pause," her mother said. Lena paused. The room rustled the way a field does before a storm. My wife put a hand to her throat. I knew that gesture too well. It meant she was searching for a softer version of this moment to offer the room. I wished, with a sudden, childish intensity, that I could hand her one. But the screen didn't care about wishes. It waited, blankly patient, for us to keep going. "Play," her father said. The footage rolled. My wife stood at the edge of the driveway, texting. After a beat, she didn't head to the front door. She walked around to the passenger side of her car and opened it. She got in. The dome light bloomed. The silhouette of a second person rose in the frame. Someone already inside. A shadow turned human by the caught light. No one spoke. You could hear the house hum. I felt the smallest, strangest relief that the camera had no audio, that we could all be spared whatever words had been spoken inside that car. The screen held us and wouldn't let go. "Stop." My wife tried again, her voice breaking for the first time all night. But the video, our life in that ghostly gray, kept moving, and we watched, together, as the truth we'd been circling found us and sat down in our living room. Then Lena, with a finger that didn't shake, tapped pause. Silence followed. No one moved. The screen held us like a photograph. The driveway lit in pallid gray, my wife a ghost in the passenger seat of her own car, a second shape haloed by the dome light. I could hear the refrigerator humming from the kitchen and, underneath it, the thin tremble of my own breath. My wife recovered first. "This is insane," she said, more to the room than to me. "You're making up a story around a smudge." "It is a smudge," her mother offered, reaching for something kind. "Low light angles. People see what they expect." "Maybe," I said. I expected to be wrong. I prayed to be. Her father didn't sit. He hovered near the TV as if he could steady the entire house by staying on his feet. "Is there more?" "There's the doorbell camera," I said. "But it doesn't show faces either. Just timings. Movements." I swallowed. I'm not trying to prosecute her. I'm trying to stop drowning. The words surprised me. They were rounder than anger. I felt them when I said them, heavy and embarrassing. I caught my wife's profile in the TV glare, strong jaw, the same one I'd kissed at a gas station in Iowa on our first road trip, when love felt like a long highway and not a maze of side streets. I thought about how many nights I'd been absent in plain sight, laptop open, phone buzzing, telling myself I was building a future for us and mistaking absence for devotion. "Then say what you want," she said, softening enough to sting. "Because you don't want a movie night. You want me to confess to a story you've already written." "I want what we were," I said. "Or I want the truth that lets me grieve it." Lena's thumb hovered over the screen controls. "We can argue," she said, eyes bouncing between us. "Or we can look a little longer and then decide what the arguing is even about." She zoomed, dragged, rewound 2 seconds, played forward. The light washed out details and then, briefly, gave one back. A wrist lifting toward my wife, a sliver of skin, the suggestion of a mark there, ink dark, small. The image slipped past. "Back," Lena said. "Please." Her mother sighed. Lena. Mom, just back. Lena rewound again. We all leaned without meaning to. The wrist reappeared, paused on the edge of clarity, a tiny crescent near the thumb. Not a shape I knew. A habit, though, the way that other hand moved, knuckles forward, like it belonged to someone who talked with their hands and couldn't stop. The feeling that I knew the motion darted through me, then was gone. It could be anyone, my wife said. The chip in her voice widened. It could be Kara. It could be. Kara has a scar on her right hand from the blender, her brother said, surprising everyone. Left wrist here. And Kara's hair is blue this month. That silhouette isn't blue. Since when do you notice hair colors? My wife snapped. Since they came to my trivia team, he said, then, softer, to me. You used to come on Tuesdays. We were good when you kept score. I felt something in me tip, grief for a small, ordinary ritual I'd let go. Tuesdays had been ours. When work swallowed me, I told myself Thursday would do, and then some other week, and then suddenly there was no ritual at all, just two people orbiting the same kitchen island at different speeds. I could have tried harder, I said into the room. I could have named what I needed sooner. I could have listened when you said you were lonely and not tried to fix it with plans and budgets. I turned to my wife. I'm not bringing a tape because I'm perfect. I'm bringing it because I'm lost. Her eyes softened, then shuddered. I was lonely, she said, and the words shook. I asked for you, and most nights I got your outline. The part of you that stayed was the part that kept score, of receipts, of time, of who was late to text back. She gestured at the screen, the frozen light over the car. So I lied. I hated myself while I did it, but I lied because lying felt easier than saying I was angry enough to scorch the ground. Her father rubbed his temple like an old ache was waking up. Angry enough to what? To want out, she said, and then her hand flew to her mouth, as if she could catch the words midair and shove them back in. Tears pooled, not yet falling. The room tilted toward her, her mother's instinctive reach, her brother's awkward half-step. I don't want to punish you, I said. I can take the blame I own. I just can't carry a story that keeps changing every time I look at it. Lena exhaled. Then we keep looking. She tapped play again. The dome light dimmed. The car's interior sank back to gray. My wife's figure leaned forward, a touch, her hand on a shoulder that read as familiar and not. Then the dome light died. Just shapes and the small pulse of the phone in her hand. We're not going to see faces, her mother said, almost pleading with the pixels to obey. We're just going to eat our hearts in here. A notification banner slid across Lena's phone, briefly obscuring the footage. Her husband, Mark, asking how's your dad? Back soon. Lena swiped it away out of habit. My wife flinched like the air itself had snapped. It was quick, so quick someone not looking for tells might have missed it. But I saw her shoulders seize, the smallest freeze, like a deer catching a flash. I filed it and immediately hated myself for filing it. I was tired of being the clerk of our life. Pause, I said, and surprised myself by setting my hand lightly on my wife's wrist. One question. I waited until she met my eyes. If we turn this off right now, will you tell me the truth? Not to save the marriage, to save our names inside ourselves. She looked at the screen, then at her family, then back at me, and for a second the room shrank to the width of that gaze. The first apartment, the silly fights about towels. That morning we ate peaches over the sink and laughed with juice on our wrists. I can tell a truth, she said. I don't know if it's the one you want. Any truth is better than the spare bedroom we've been living in, I said. She nodded. I wasn't with Kara. I wasn't stuck with a flat tire. I met someone for a drink because I wanted to feel like I still existed when you weren't looking. She held up a hand when her mother gasped. But the car. That night, we didn't. I didn't. She couldn't finish, or wouldn't. I sat with him because I was afraid to come inside and be the bad guy in my own house. Her father lowered the remote as if it were heavy now. Who is him? Her mouth opened, then closed. And here the story wanted a gentler ending for part 2 than it could have. Here I wanted to say she named a stranger, and the room let out a ruined sigh. Instead, Lena, still looking at the freeze frame, leaned closer, squinting at that tiny crescent on the wrist, and something in her face changed. A recognition. A hurt that moved like a shadow across water. Lena, I said. She didn't answer at first. Her thumb hovered, trembling, above the glass. Then she rewound 3 seconds, paused again at the flare of light on skin. She brought the phone closer to her own face, as if private proximity would make it less public. When she finally spoke, her voice had dropped an inch deeper. "Can you all give me 1 minute?" she said, not taking her eyes off the screen. She set the phone down on the coffee table like it might burn her if she held it any longer. Then she looked at my wife, not angry yet, just unbearably tender and tired. "I think I know who that is." The air in the room had thickened. Lena didn't blink, her eyes locked on my wife's. "It's Mark," she said finally, each syllable weighted like it might crack the floor. My brain scrambled. Lena's husband. The man who'd once helped us move a couch up 3 flights of stairs, who'd grilled burgers in my backyard like we were all stitched into the same patchwork family. Her father's jaw tightened, a slow grind of realization. Her mother's hand froze over her glass. My wife's breath caught. I heard it. Not a gasp, more like the sound a runner makes when they hit a wall they didn't see coming. "You're mistaken," she said, but the fight in her voice was gone. Lena didn't answer right away. She just tapped the screen to play the next few seconds. The dome light flared again as the passenger shifted. This time, the wrist turned just enough to reveal the small, unmistakable tattoo of a compass. Mark's compass. I'd seen it dozens of times, at barbecues, birthdays, that long weekend at the lake. Her father swore under his breath. Her mother whispered, "Dear God." I didn't move, didn't speak. It wasn't triumph I felt. It was a strange, hollow clarity, like the floor plan of my life had been redrawn without me. All the small moments that hadn't made sense, Mark offering to help her out with errands, the extra long hugs at family gatherings, suddenly slotted into place. My wife turned to me, eyes glossy. "It wasn't," she stopped. The truth sat there between us, needing no translation. Lena set the phone down like it was heavy. "I'm sorry you had to find out like this," she said to me, voice soft but edged. I shook my head. No, I needed to know. Just didn't know the blast radius would be this big. Her father stood, the remote dangling from his hand. "Dinner's over," he said, not looking at anyone. Her mother stayed seated, as if moving might shatter something that was already cracked. I glanced at my wife one last time, searching for something, remorse, explanation, even anger, but what I saw instead was resignation. She knew the story couldn't be spun anymore. Not here. Not with the room this still. I didn't say goodbye. Just stepped out into the night air, the cold cutting clean lines into my thoughts. Behind me, I could still feel the silence I'd left in that living room, a silence that wasn't mine to carry anymore. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt lighter.